this next one, I thought also for people who are less familiar with Buddhism, this first point of this I think is interesting and controversial, maybe. It says, seek the three principal causes. So again, this is like advice, right? So the three principal causes, the first one is these are causes of training the mind, causes of being happy, causes of success in spiritual life. So the first one is to gain the instruction of a teacher, of a guru, of a lama, or whatever, however you want to translate that, who's kind and wise. Actually, I'll list all three. Second one is then develop a very strong commitment or will or inner resolution to practice those instructions. And the third is create whatever inner and outer circumstances you need in order to continue your practice of those. And so, I want to talk just a tiny bit about this first one, right? Seek and find the instruction of a kind and wise spiritual teacher. In some way, these words are that, right? That's what I suggested at the very beginning. These words, I'm not saying I'm that, but the words themselves are that, right? Because they come from someone like that. But what this is suggesting is this: is for something really important, like training, like your own spiritual life, that the instruction of somebody who's really kind and wise and experienced is very important. And I think the Dalai Lama mentioned this, and it's in the teachings. Is there are lists actually of qualities that a teacher should have for different levels of teaching. So there's like certain qualifications that you should use. And I want to be clear, it's your job to know those and look. If you're looking for a kind, wise spiritual teacher, you're supposed to look up those qualities and then compare them. Like again, so you see a teacher and you go, okay, do they have these three? And then there are 10. There are different ones for like the Mahayana. A Mahayana teacher, there are a list of 10 qualities. Then for Tantra, for lower Tantras, is a list of 10. Then for highest Yoga Tantra, is another list of 10. And so, I remember once I was with Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Rinpa Rinpoche. It was very moving, actually. Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, he said why he had taken Rinpa Rinpoche as his teacher. And he was able to go through each of the, and he had memorized them, and he went through it. He said, here's the sign that he's accomplished this one. He went through all the different qualities, it was 30 of them or something. He said, here's the sign, how I can tell he has this quality. Here's the sign, how I could tell he has this quality. Here's the sign. So he explained why he had made that decision. So he did what you're supposed to do. He was just showing that's what we're all supposed to do. He wasn't he was teaching. He was saying, this is what you all should do. And I remember it was quite funny because it took him a long time to list how he got, how Rinpa Rinpoche had all those different qualities. And then Rinpa Rinpoche said, well, Lama Zopa was my student, but he's many of your teachers. So let me tell you why he has all 30. And then he started going through and he started listing them all and saying, Lama Zopa also has these qualities. And here's the evidence. He does this, he does that. Because you can tell there's certain signs for each quality. But I want to make just one more comment on that point, which is this, is, if you're going to put on a Band-Aid for a cut, right, you can go to just anybody, right? Like, in other words, anybody can help you put on a Band-Aid if you have a cut, right? But if you need brain surgery, like, would you go to the same person who you would go to put on, like, for example, if I scrape my elbow, I might ask my mom to if I were with her, I'd say, oh, can you put that on, right? And I would trust her, definitely she would do a good job putting on a Band-Aid. But if I needed brain surgery, I probably wouldn't ask her. Or if you needed, like, triple bypass surgery, right? It wouldn't be very smart to ask, right? Not because she, and I'm using the example of my mom on purpose because I know she loves me and cares about me very, very deeply, right? So it's not that she wouldn't care, like she would make a mistake in brain surgery or open heart surgery because she doesn't care, right? It's that she would know and I would know she's not capable of that, right? She's not a neurosurgeon. And the point here is this, so that I'm not just getting into, so how much do we value our spiritual training if we don't do similar check, right? Like, do you do the same kind of checkup if you're gonna really get engaged in studying, like, the path to enlightenment? What the Buddhist teachings are suggesting is that we should be kind of careful like that, right? That we should check up carefully and find somebody, because think how much you trust somebody, right? Like, if you do open heart surgery, like triple bypass surgery with it, if somebody does that with like a doctor, right? Like, think how much trust the person's having in that doctor, right? You're literally saying, like, my entire life is in your hands, right? What this is saying is that, like a guru, right, or a lama, if you're developing a relationship with them, it's a similarly important relationship. So they should have certain qualifications, and you should check. That's all. Does that make sense? It's like a logical thing. Because for a Buddhist point of view, if you're putting your trust in their teaching, that's going to last many lifetimes, actually. And if you find the wrong teacher, it'll get like a bad spiritual gene that'll throw you into off the path for many future lifetimes. So what this is suggesting is just that we should be quite analytical and thoughtful about that. Anyway, does that make sense? Right? And actually, I want one more comment. I think in the West also we haven't been that good about that. Actually, I don't think yet that Western people are that good about it because, that's like there are sometimes there have been like controversies, right, in different groups and things like that. And the Dalai Lama often points out, he says, that's a sign that check now. He said, he says it's your job. And he said the lists are there. Check up, make sure. That's our job, is to really be careful in that. So I'm just emphasizing that. But then, of course, anyway, these other ones are obvious, right? If you take teachings from a spirit, even if you find a perfect teacher, right, like the Dalai Lama, and he teaches, okay, so spend time contemplating the value of compassion, and then you think, wow, that was so cool, right? And then you go home and don't do that, then it doesn't have any impact, right? It doesn't actually do hardly anything, right? So if you have to actually practice what they teach, right? So if he says he spends 4 hours a day doing analytical meditation, and then I say, well, I'm just going to do some breathing meditation, read some Dharma books every now and then, but I'm not going to actually do contemplative meditation. And then you say, well, in other words, then having gotten the instruction from the Dalai Lama doesn't have that much of an impact on you because you don't practice. Right, it's the same thing if the metaphor they usually use is if a doctor gives you the excellent diagnosis and an excellent medication, and then you leave it in your closet, of course it doesn't have any actual benefit, right? It's like that. And the third one, outer and inner conditions, that's obvious, you have to have. But they say don't worry too much about it. Actually, there's a later point that says don't worry too much about the conditions, though. Practice now anyway. I think we only have a few more minutes, so maybe and I want to leave a few minutes at the end for questions. So I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit and just cover just a couple more points, because a lot of these are quite similar. One is train consistently without partiality, and that goes along with a few of the other ones in here. I want to emphasize this point, though. Like one thing these advices say very clearly is kind of was implied earlier on, is don't wait for good circumstances to practice the path. If you say I'm going to wait, I'm going to say this really happens. Like I meet a lot of people who say that, like they go, oh yeah, I really want to study Dharma, and once I retire, I'm ready to do that. Or once this happens, then I'll start practicing meditation. Or after this, and that's a bad sign. Actually, that's not a good sign. Right? Because first of all, you don't know you're going to be alive. You can't deny that, right? Nobody knows that. And secondly, people who say that, then there's always something else, right? Whereas you say, oh, when I retire. Oh, but now I retire, but when I move, right? Oh, now I move, but first I have to get used to this new area. Oh, well, now I got used to the area, but I have to join a club. Whereas there's always going to be some other reason. So if you have that mental habit of saying, I'll do it later, then later won't come. Death will come before later. Because it never is later, right? It's always now. So if you say, I'll do it later, actually, as soon as you say, I'll do it later, in a way that means I'm not going to do it. There's another point here which I actually really wanted to cover. It says, train consistently with difficult situations. And there are actually, they list 5 different difficult situations, but I wanted to emphasize a couple of them. One is, they say, especially train, one of them is with people closest to you. And that's a really interesting one, I think, right? Because who are the people it's most easy to get angry at? And who are the people who are most easily get on our nerves? It's not people who you rarely come in contact with, right? It's people who you're closest with. So it's saying if you're going to practice training your mind, they should be a special focus. So if you're going to practice compassion, everybody's equal in one sense, right? That we're supposed to cultivate a compassion that has equanimity, that where we embrace, ants and presidents and strangers and friends. So in one way, it's supposed to all be equal. But then in terms of actually training, they're pointing out, put a special emphasis on the people who you're close to, like your coworkers and your people you live with, because they're harder to practice compassion and patience towards, right? And then there's another group that I thought was worth mentioning, which are those with whom you have a negative karmic connection. And that's a particular thing that does happen if you study it, if you think about it and you analyze it, where sometimes there are certain people, like who you meet them and you immediately, they feel like annoying, they immediately get on your nerves for some reason. Even though maybe they do something similar to somebody else, like their behavior is not wildly different from another person, somehow they're just like annoying, or you're annoying to them, you know, like, and you may think, well, why am I getting on it? Like, I don't even know this person. Why are they annoyed with me? You know, or I don't really know, like, or you see somebody, you immediately feel a kind of an aversion. Like, just like, oh, I don't want to be around them, or something like that. What the teachings are saying is, those are people you have some kind of negative karmic relationship to from the past. And so like close people, that's another group of people that you're supposed to especially practice the mind training with. Because the point here is this, is what that's, from a Buddhist point of view, what they would say is, that's a sign, if you don't have a reason in this life, right, you just see the person immediately feel an aversion, oh, I don't want to be around them, or they're immediately being difficult to you, even though you haven't done anything yet. That's a sign that each of you, or at least you, did something bad to them in a past life. And there are 4 different results of karma, but one of them is a tendency to do it again. So the problem is that you meet the person, right? Let's say you argued with them and fought with them and hurt them or something like that in a past life, right? So then you meet them, they may have a difficult feeling towards you because of some karmic imprint. And then, what's the word? Because they're being annoying again, then again you have some tendency to feel aggressive towards them. And that's how karma continues on and on and on endlessly. Which is why samsara can be infinite. So the idea here is to say, okay, this is the lifetime where I change that. This is the moment when I change that. And even though I feel this aversion, that's a good thing. In other words, that's a good thing in the sense that now I can fix it. You know, if I didn't have that opportunity, then I would never fix it. You know, so I see this person, they get on my nerves. Great, that's the time to train and to practice. Does that make sense? Kind of like, so there are other groups too. You know, like anyway, you know, competitors and other issues. But I want to emphasize those 2 groups because I think that's something that all of us have the experience of, right? Some people just you don't get along with, and other people you know you're close to where you have problems. This one was already kind of, one is don't rely on other conditions. That's just what we already said in a way, right? It's saying don't wait for things to be perfect to start practicing. Practice now. Actually, I'll go into this one too. I want to at least cover 2 more, and then we'll see if we have time after that. One is it says don't apply wrong understanding, and I think this one's an interesting point. They list 6. There are 6 different kinds of wrong understandings, and some of them are similar, but I'll give a couple examples. One is wrong patience. So that's kind of, it's related to something you said earlier, but what would be wrong patience, right? Because in general, Buddhism says patience is great. But the idea here is this, is to patiently bear difficulties for meaningless things and not to bear difficulties to train your mind. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, so if you're very patient in bearing, like some people actually, because some people who practice Buddhism actually do this one, I think. It's more common to people who practice Buddhism than maybe other people. But it's a wrong view. It's like, it's this. It's saying, oh, I'm going to be really patient in regards to like worldly things, but I'm not going to be patient in bearing the hardships of training my mind. So like, for example, I'm trying to think of, you see, it's easy. I mean, I'm just thinking of, I'll give an example. Like, people like, you know, there's extreme examples like this, like people who wait out in line, like to get into a concert, right? Like, you know, that's one kind of bearing hardships, right? I'm going to sleep overnight on the floor so I can get into this concert, but I wouldn't do something similar to train my mind in virtue, right?